A mother's love is unconditional, but what happens when a son chooses his wife over the woman who raised him? I made one decision to protect my family's future, and in return, I was cast aside. But was I truly wrong or just misunderstood? I have always believed that family comes first. And that's exactly what I told myself when I made the decision to secure my son's future. His new wife, Emily, would never understand. She was young, naive, and selfish, but I, Margaret, I knew better. I had raised Daniel on my own after his father passed. I had sacrificed for him, given him everything, and now it was his turn to step up. At the wedding reception, I tapped the microphone, the room falling silent as I spoke. "I have a little surprise for the bride and groom," I announced, smiling at Daniel. "I did something special for my son because he deserves the best, so I went ahead and canceled their honeymoon." The room was still, then a few nervous chuckles. They thought I was joking. I wasn't. "Why waste all that money on a vacation when my son has real responsibilities?" I continued. "That money is better spent where it belongs, on family, on me." I glanced at Emily, her smile frozen. She grabbed her phone under the table, her fingers flying across the screen. A second later, her face drained of color. My own son looked down at his phone, his jaw tightening. "Tell me this isn't real," Emily whispered, barely audible. Daniel inhaled sharply, his knuckles white around his glass. "My account is empty," he muttered. Well, of course it was. I had transferred the money. That's what a responsible family does. We take care of each other. It wasn't theft, it was protection. "Mom?" Daniel said, standing, his voice dangerously calm. "What did you do?" "Oh, stop being dramatic," I scoffed. "I moved the money where it should have been in the first place. You're a married man now, Daniel. It's time to grow up and provide for your family." I smiled at him, waiting for him to understand. His wife didn't wait. She leaned forward, eyes blazing. "You stole our honeymoon fund!" I felt the blood drain from my face, my vision blurred. The whispers in the room grew louder, people murmuring, shifting in their seats. "I put it in my account," I managed to say, trying to keep my composure. "I needed it for important things." "Like a penthouse suite," Emily snapped. A guest stood up. "Margaret, you do realize I'm a lawyer, right?" My stomach twisted. "What you just did?" "That's financial fraud," he continued. "You did it in front of 50 witnesses. You might want to get ahead of this before it gets worse." No. I couldn't let this happen. "Daniel, you're not really going to do this to your own mother, are you?" I pleaded. He met my eyes, his expression cold. "You already did this to yourself." The bank representative spoke. "Sir, we can escalate this case as fraud. Would you like to proceed?" "Yes," Daniel said. I gasped. "No, tell them to stop." His next words shattered me. "You remember that prenup you told me not to sign? The one you said was insulting?" I barely nodded, my throat dry. He smirked. "I signed it anyway, and guess what? Our accounts remain separate, which means you didn't just steal from me, you stole from Emily." I thought I might faint. The room watched in silence as Daniel took Emily's hand. "After tonight, I want nothing to do with you," he said flatly. "No calls, no visits, nothing. If you ever try to contact me or my wife again, I'll file a restraining order." The air left my lungs. "You don't mean that," I choked out. "I do." I tried to beg, but he was already turning away. I screamed, but no one defended me. By morning, the bank had reversed every transaction. My cruise? Canceled. My car deposit? Gone. Worse, my account was frozen while they investigated. The police showed up at my door, warning me that if I tried anything again, I'd be facing legal consequences. Then the final blow. 3 months later, saw the pictures. Daniel and Emily smiling, laughing, drinking champagne in first-class seats on their way to Italy. Their trip had been upgraded, fully paid for by wedding guests who despised me. I had lost everything. And the worst part, I had done it to myself. I still don't understand how my own son could betray me like that. After everything I did for him, after all the sacrifices I made, he repaid me with cruelty. He humiliated me in front of our entire family, treated me like a criminal, and worst of all, he cut me off. For weeks after the wedding, I barely slept. I couldn't eat. Every time I picked up my phone, I wanted to call him to remind him that he was my son, that no matter what his wife whispered in his ear, he belonged to me. But I couldn't, because he had blocked me. My own son had blocked me as if I were some kind of stranger. And then came the real nightmare. The bank froze my accounts, leaving me stranded. My credit cards were useless. The money I had carefully redirected, our family's money, was taken from me in an instant. The cruise? Gone. The luxury SUV I had put a deposit on? Canceled. The little bit of security I had built for myself, all wiped away with the push of a button. Then the police came. The police, they knocked on my door like I was some kind of criminal, warning me about potential fraud charges. Me? A criminal? What kind of world is this where a mother can't protect her own son's financial future without being accused of a crime? But the worst part wasn't the bank or the money or even the embarrassment of the police visit. No, the worst part was how quickly people turned against me. Friends I had known for decades stopped returning my calls. Family members who once came to me for advice, for support, for guidance, suddenly wanted nothing to do with me. Even people at church, people I had prayed with for years, looked away when I walked by, all because of one selfish girl, Emily. She had done this. She had poisoned my son against me, made him believe that money mattered more than family, that his own mother was the enemy. And for what? A vacation? A few weeks in Italy? It made me sick. And then the photos started appearing. 3 months later, I was sitting alone in my house, the same house where I had raised my son, when I saw them. Pictures everywhere. Daniel and Emily grinning, holding champagne glasses in first-class seats. Then more, walking hand in hand along the canals of Venice. Dining at rooftop restaurants in Rome, lounging in a private villa in Tuscany. It wasn't just a honeymoon. It was an upgraded luxury, once-in-a-lifetime trip paid for by the very people who had turned against me. Friends, family, even distant relatives had pitched in extra money just to make sure their vacation was better than anything I had ever had. They did it out of spite. I felt a deep burning rage in my chest. They were celebrating my pain. They were laughing at me. And Daniel, my own son, let them. I stared at the screen, my hands trembling. I wanted to throw my phone across the room, but instead I did something worse. I clicked on the comments. Oh wow, first class to Italy? That's what I call karma. Best honeymoon ever? Hope you're enjoying it, you too. Unlike some people, love that everyone came together to make sure your trip was extra special. Some people don't deserve nice things anyway. I couldn't breathe. The whole world had turned against me. But I wasn't wrong. I knew that. I had done what was necessary. A son is supposed to support his mother. A wife is supposed to respect her husband's family. But instead, Daniel let Emily destroy everything. I had protected that money. I had made sure it wasn't wasted on a meaningless trip. And for that, I was punished. It wasn't fair. And I wasn't going to let it go. Daniel may have blocked my number, but he couldn't block me forever. He had forgotten who raised him, who taught him everything, who sacrificed for him. He had forgotten his place. But one day he would remember. I refused to accept that this was how things would end. Daniel could ignore my calls, block my number, pretend I didn't exist, but I was still his mother. Nothing could change that. Blood is blood. I had given him life, raised him, provided for him when he had nothing, and now he thought he could just throw me away? No, he was still young, still blinded by Emily's manipulation, but one day he would wake up. One day he would realize what he had done, and when that day came, I would be there. Not to gloat, not to say I told you so, but to help him, because that's what a mother does. I started planning. If they thought they could cut me out so easily, they were wrong. The bank could take my money, the police could humiliate me, but they couldn't erase me. I still had friends, real friends, who knew the truth. I still had influence in the community, and more importantly, I still knew Daniel better than anyone. Emily might have fooled him into thinking he didn't need me, but deep down, I knew he did. So I waited, I watched, I listened, and sure enough, cracks started to form. It started small. A cousin mentioned at a gathering that Daniel had been stressed about money. Apparently, their little luxury honeymoon had cost them more than they expected. Emily, of course, wanted to live like royalty now. Fancy dinners, designer clothes, weekend trips, all on Daniel's dime. And since I wasn't there to guide him, he was letting her drain him dry. I almost laughed. It was exactly what I had been trying to protect him from. Then, a friend from church told me she had seen them arguing in a store. Emily wanted something expensive, some ridiculous handbag, if I recall, and Daniel said no. Emily didn't like that. She threw a fit right there in public. My son, my strong, capable Daniel, was now a man who let his wife scream at him like a child in the middle of a department store. It was embarrassing. But it was also proof she was showing her true colors, and soon Daniel would see it too. I just had to wait a little longer. Then it happened. I woke up one morning, my phone buzzing. I almost didn't check it. I had gotten used to being ignored, but something made me look. And there it was, a message from Daniel. "Mom, can we talk?" I stared at the screen, my heart pounding. He had come back, just as I knew he would. I could picture it already. He had finally seen through Emily's lies, finally realized what she had done. Maybe she had spent too much. Maybe she had disrespected him one too many times. Maybe he had just woken up one day and understood how much he needed his mother. It didn't matter. I had won. I took my time before responding. I wouldn't make it too easy for him. He had hurt me, after all. He had let that girl turn him against me, humiliate me, steal from me. He had let the world mock me. No, he needed to understand that actions had consequences. So I wrote back simply, "We'll see." He responded almost immediately. "I'm sorry for how things happened. I just want to talk." I allowed myself a small smile. He was desperate. I could work with that. "Fine," I replied. "Dinner, my house, Sunday." I could almost hear his sigh of relief through the screen. "Okay, see you then." I put my phone down, exhaling. I had done it. I had been patient, I had waited, and now my son was coming back to me. Emily had lost, and she didn't even know it yet. And so, just like I always knew he would, my son came back to me. Maybe not fully, not yet, but this was only the beginning. Emily's grip on him was slipping. The fantasy she had built of a life where she controlled everything, where she could push me out and live off Daniel's hard work, was falling apart. She had underestimated me. Because here's the thing, a mother always knows best. I didn't raise my son to be weak. I didn't raise him to be manipulated, and no woman, no matter how pretty, no matter how clever, could erase the bond we had. Blood is stronger than any marriage. He would realize that soon enough. So I would wait. I would be patient. I wouldn't push too hard, not yet. I would let Daniel come to me, let him confide in me, let him remember that I was the only one who had ever truly been on his side. And when the time was right, when he was ready to see the truth, I would be there. And Emily, she would be nothing more than a mistake he barely remembers. If you think I did the right thing, say so. If you think I was wrong, tell me. What would you have done?